Next to me is the new BMW M8 competition Gran Coupe, which despite its name is a four-door. It's extremely fast, it sounds amazing, it's unbelievably luxurious inside, but is it worth its $140,000 price tag? Well, today we're gonna find out exactly that. The M8 is both beautiful and aggressive from every angle, and it's available in 3 different styles as well. There's the Coupe, which of course is a 2-door, the convertible, and this, the Gran Coupe 4-door, which is my personal favorite. They've actually extended the length of this car by 9 inches over the 2-door, giving you a heck of a lot more space in the rear and providing kind of a fun alternative vehicle to buying a BMW M5. Under the hood of the M8 competition is a masterpiece of an engine, a 4.4-liter twin-turbocharged V8 that in this form makes 617 horsepower and 553 pound-feet of torque. Now, because the M8 has variable all-wheel drive, it's able to launch incredibly well. 0 to 60 happens in just 2.9 seconds, and the quarter mile in 10.9. For reference, that's a full second faster to 60 and the quarter mile than the M6 Gran Coupe, the vehicle in which this replaced. Now, the engine is mated to an 8-speed ZF automatic transmission. It's not a dual clutch unit, but that allows for the tricksy variable all-wheel drive system that I'll talk more about in a bit that allows this car to go from fully all-wheel drive to fully rear-wheel drive for crazy drifts and burnouts when you want it. I love the side profile of the M8 Gran Coupe. It's sleek, it's sexy, and it just looks right. Now, we've got this gorgeous side vent air breather here that looks really cool, although unfortunately it's not actually functional. Normally, you'd imagine turbulent airflow in the front wheel well would be able to escape out the side for better aerodynamics and reduced lift, but well, they didn't make a real one in this case. That being said, the standard 20-inch wheels are really, really nice looking, coming with Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, which are the best in the business. Now, if you've got too much money to function and you just want to blow it on something, for $8,200 you can upgrade to carbon ceramic brakes, but it's an M8, it's not a GT3 RS. Save some money and don't get the carbon ceramics. The rear of the M8 is really nice as well. I love this integrated rear deck lid spoiler, the nice looking rear diffuser, the quad exhaust, and beautiful rear taillights. Speaking of the exhaust, particularly when you're under load and on overrun, this V8 sounds incredible. I'm thankful that we still have an amazing sounding BMW in the lineup, and this might just very well be the king. Let's start the interior portion of this review off with the rear seat experience. By the looks of the vehicle, it honestly doesn't look like there's all that much space in the back because of that sexy sloping roofline, but honestly, there's an impressive amount of space back here. I have tons of legroom. 2 people could sit behind each other, like somebody who's 6'4" could sit behind somebody who's 6'4". I've got a decent amount of headroom. I guess if you're over 6 feet, your head might hit a little bit, but honestly, for a car that looks this stylish, I'm impressed with how much space there is. Now, there's some creature comforts back here as well. I love the design of the seats, that diamond pattern. I also really like the M-striped seat belts, this nice aluminum trim here for the Bowers & Wilkins speaker system. We've also got rear sunshades that you can activate right there, as well as a rear sunshade for the back window. Now, there are climate controls for the rear seat occupants, individual climate controls for the left and the right. You also get heated seats back here, as well as 2 charging ports. Now, technically, the M8 Gran Coupe is a 5-seater, so you can put somebody in the middle here, although I'm not gonna lie, having your legs wrapped around the center console isn't the most comfortable, although I could still sit here in a pinch. But it makes the design language of the rear of the cabin a lot sexier, so I'm glad they have included this. And for 4 people, you could go on really long road trips in this, no problem at all. In the front seat of the M8 now, and the interior is gorgeous. I love the design language of the seats. They're both comfortable and supportive. In fact, you can actually upgrade to even more bolstered seats in an M8. For $3,800, you get these incredible looking carbon fiber buckets. Although I will say, these have such a good mix of both being comfortable and supportive, it's probably a better decision in this car, whereas in something like an M3, you might opt for those carbon fiber bucket seats. Like all BMW M cars, the steering wheel is fantastic, and we have paddles mounted behind the wheel itself, which are mated to ZF's 8-speed automatic transmission. The paddles feel nice to the touch, although not quite as nice as the new M3's paddles. Maybe they'll integrate that in a future update on the 8 Series. Of course, we have BMW M's traditional M1 and M2 customizable buttons, we have a slew of options for customizing the driving experience in the M8. But you can use these as shortcuts that you can save as presets to your liking. So let's go ahead and configure M1 right now. We're going to make that as comfortable as possible. So we'll go to efficient for the engine, comfort for the chassis, comfort for the steering, and comfort for the brakes. You can actually choose the intensity of the brakes and choose the bite point, whether you want it to come on more instantly or you want it to be a more relaxed feel. Go ahead and press and hold M1 to go ahead and save that. And then for M2, we're gonna use the M8's greatest party trick. Click over to M2. Now, if we go ahead and press and hold the traction control off button, up on the screen pops Configure M Extra. What we can do now is actually choose between all-wheel drive, which it comes standard as. Now with traction control off, you can actually go into four-wheel drive sport, which is more rear bias, but you can also go all the way into two-wheel drive. So you can have a completely rear-wheel drive drift burnout missile of an M8. And then when you want to do successful launch controls, you put it back into four-wheel drive mode. If you're driving in the rain, all-wheel drive, etc., etc. I love that it has the best of both worlds. So we'll go ahead, press and hold M2, go ahead and store that two-wheel drive mode. Now, there's also some gesture controls for the multimedia system. I love the infotainment system in the M8. It works really well. It's touchscreen. The graphics are nice. They're not overly fancy, but you can use gesture control to turn up and down the music with your finger like this. What I really like is you can actually go to the next track or the previous track by jamming your thumb into your passenger or into your face. I thought it was a gimmick at first, but honestly, as you become more comfortable with the car over the last 2 weeks, I've grown quite fond of being able to use gesture control, and it certainly gets a rise out of your passenger. Now, speaking of the multimedia system, there's also fantastic ambient lighting. If we go into car, then we'll go ahead into settings, then you can go into interior lighting. Got a bunch of different options to choose from. Right now we're on lilac. Blue looks fantastic as well, but I love the fact that they integrate interior lighting into this car, and it makes the nighttime ambiance feel a heck of a lot more upscale. I also love the fact that the Bowers & Wilkins speaker systems have these little kind of tornadoes in lights illuminated behind the aluminum metal. Looks really, really neat. Now, more in terms of customization. The instrument cluster is now fully digital in its standard form. It's got a nice speedo on the side, nice tachometer on the other side. Now, if we go to M mode and put it into sport mode, the tachometer becomes a lot more race focused. It's vertically oriented and it looks really cool. We also got an excellent heads-up display as well. If you press and hold M mode, it actually goes into track mode, which doesn't change the display all that much, but it does turn off the main infotainment screen, turns off the radio, gives you a little bit more information to make sure you're set up properly for the track. Now, before we take the M8 out onto the road, I wanted to show you one last cool feature that most cars don't have and absolutely should. So if we click the home button, then we go over to apps, you can go to Drive Recorder, which is actually a built-in dash cam in the M8. So it uses the surrounding cameras to film if there's a collision or if somebody breaks into your car when you're parked. Gives you that extra peace of mind. Yes, of course, Tesla has that in their cars, but I feel like at this point it should be standard to buy a new, especially one that's $140,000 vehicle, and it comes with a dash cam. All right, let's get out on the road and see what this thing is actually like to drive. I figure there's no better way to start off the M8 Competition Gran Coupe review than with a little launch control action. So to launch the car, you turn traction control all the way off. Make sure that is off. Perfect. Go ahead, put the car into manual mode. Shift selection all the way to the fastest setting. Floor the brake, floor the gas. Launch control active, and boom! Off we go. So, Car and Driver recorded a 0 to 60 with the M8 Competition in just 2.5 seconds. Now, unfortunately, it did just start raining. So in tomorrow's video, I'm gonna be using my V-Box and see exactly how quick I can get this car to sprint from 0 to 60. BMW rates it at 3 seconds flat. I'm curious, is it actually 2.5 seconds? That seems wild. That's Bugatti Veyron levels of acceleration. But hey, it's all-wheel drive. It has a great amount of torque, and traction control systems are getting better and better and more advanced. So what is the M8 like to drive? Well, when you're in comfort mode, it's surprisingly comfortable. It rides a little more firm than a luxury car would, but I enjoy that because this is more of a luxury sports car than just purely a luxury vehicle. When you put the car fully into Sport Plus mode, the suspension stiffens up, the steering stiffens up. We have sportier suspension than the normal 8 Series, as well as a stiffer steering rack. But honestly, it feels great in the canyons. It's a 4,500 pound vehicle, which is really, really big. But it doesn't feel like that. Now, the car has rear wheel steering, which means the rear wheels can turn in the opposite direction of the front wheels at low speeds for enhanced maneuverability, and they operate in the same direction of the fronts at high speeds in order to increase the stability. I love these seats. They hold you in place very well, and they're also comfortable over long distances. It's a hard decision because the upgraded carbon buckets look so cool, but I think having the added comfort of these seats might be beneficial in the long run if you're doing more long distance trips in the M8. And I love the fact that it's actually practical in the rear as well, which is why I'd get this over an M8 Coupe. Yes, the M8 Coupe is beautiful, and yes, it does all the same things that this car does, but it doesn't have that added practicality of actual usable rear seats. You can fit people in the rear of the M8 Coupe, but nowhere near as comfortably. Now, you'd expect this car to feel big and to understeer and not be all that great in the canyons, but honestly, it couldn't be further than the truth. And I think that's one of the most impressive parts about the M8. It is big, it is heavy, but it is still the ultimate driving machine and feels great behind the wheel. So we're gonna go ahead and put everything into Sport Plus mode as there's lightning going on. This thing really does pull. The torque hits you instantaneously, 553 pound-feet. You really don't have to drop many gears because that torque comes in at such a low RPM. Now, because of that all-wheel drive, you've got so much stability and confidence in the turns. And I love the sound of that V8, particularly on overrun. Right there, you can get it to crackle, but it doesn't do it every time, which I like. It's kind of a surprise. Like, is this time I let off the gas gonna produce awesome backfires? Maybe not. If it does it every single time and it just burbles and crackles 24/7, honestly, it's a little bit annoying and feels a bit ricer, even though this is a German sedan. There's nothing ricer about this thing whatsoever, that's for sure. Oh man, I hope they keep the V8 for as long as possible because it is so powerful and sounds great. Imagine if they had this engine in the new BMW M3. Why didn't they do that? Come on, BMW, that would be so awesome. The brakes work very well too. You know, it is a heavy vehicle, so it doesn't slow down like an M3, but it does stop the car quick enough to inspire confidence. Visibility is not bad, actually, out of the front and the side. The rear window is a little bit small, but for such a sexy-looking vehicle, it's really easy to drive, and the visibility is not bad whatsoever. Normal round-town driving, super easy and relaxing. Really thick windows, good isolation from the surrounding environment. Oh my gosh, there is some gnarly lightning right now. Overall, though, I really do love the M8. I've driven it for the last couple of weeks, and I don't want to give the vehicle back. It's put a smile on my face. It sounds amazing. The technology in here is incredible. It's really luxurious. I've fallen in love with the interior design language of the M8. I think traditionally, Mercedes does do a slightly better job with making a more intricate, fancy-looking interior in their luxury cars, but BMW absolutely knocked it out of the park with the M8. I think it looks classy, refined, and sporty all at the same time. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like always, please browse the channel and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you next video.